When morning came, the world did not arrive with celebration. It arrived with silence, the kind that presses against your chest until breathing becomes a decision. Inside a hospital room far from home, Gloria Matthews lay between two miracles, one that had ended and one that had survived. Her body was weak, her spirit was bruised, and still, life had found a way to remain. In a nearby crib, her newborn daughter slept in fragile breaths, small fists curled tight, as if she already knew the earth was not gentle. But in another room, her husband, Lieutenant Ethan Matthews, lay still beneath a flag, honored by a nation, missed by a family, and carried by a love that refused to let go. So the world stood suspended between two beds, one where life had ended and another where it had begun. If you're ready for the most emotional chapter yet of The Story Behind the Glory, Episode 6, The Return Home, stay with me, because this episode will touch your heart and strengthen your faith. And before we begin, please subscribe, like this video, and share this story with someone who needs hope today. When Gloria woke, it was not the kind of waking that feels like starting again. It was the kind that feels like realizing the nightmare is real. She turned her head slowly, carefully, because everything inside her ached. And then she saw the crib. The baby stirred, so small, so new, so stubbornly alive. A nurse stepped close, voice gentle, almost reverent, like she was standing on sacred ground. "She's strong, Mrs. Matthews," the nurse whispered, "just like you." Gloria's lips trembled, but no sound came at first. She reached out with a shaking hand and touched the baby's tiny fingers. The baby gripped her, not hard, just enough to say, "I'm here, don't leave me." Gloria swallowed a sob that rose like a wave. Her eyes filled, her mouth quivered. "You're all I have now." In that light she felt him, not in sight, but in spirit. Love never really leaves, it only changes its address. 3 days passed the way grief often moves, slow on the clock, fast in the soul. The U.S. Department of Defense arrived with precision. Black vehicles, polished doors, a military escort standing with quiet respect. Gloria was helped into the back seat, still weak, still hollow. Her arms held everything she had left. Daniel, barely 2, warm and confused, eyes wide like he could sense something had changed. And the newborn, wrapped in white, small, fragile, breathing softly against Gloria's chest. Outside, the casket was carried with careful hands and solemn faces, draped in the American flag, held like something sacred, because a man's life had been poured out inside it. Gloria watched through the window as it was placed into the convoy. And something inside her cracked again. Not loudly, not dramatically, just silently, like a heart learning a new way to break. The vehicles began to move. Gloria pressed her forehead against the glass. Tears slid down without permission. And the desert stretched ahead, wide, endless, familiar. Once filled with laughter and promise. Now it looked like it was holding its breath. At the U.S. Embassy, sympathy lived in the eyes of strangers. Officials greeted Gloria with quiet solemnity, as if everyone understood that this was more than paperwork. This was the administrative side of tragedy, the part where grief must sign its name. Passports for the children, travel authorization, forms that moved faster than her heart could handle. An officer leaned forward, voice soft, respectful. "You and your children are citizens of the United States. We're going to get you home." Gloria nodded faintly, blinking slowly as tears threatened again. She took the pen with shaking fingers and wrote her name, Gloria Johnson Matthews, a name she had carried in joy and now carried in sorrow. Behind her, Daniel clung to her dress like the world might steal her too. His voice was small, barely above a whisper. "Mummy, where's Papa?" Gloria froze, because no training prepares a mother for that moment. The moment your child asks a question your soul can't answer without bleeding. Her throat tightened. She crouched slowly, bringing her face close to his. She forced her voice to stay gentle. "Papa has gone to be with Jesus, my son." Daniel's brows furrowed, confusion mixed with trust. He looked at her the way children look at mothers, like whatever she says becomes reality. "Then Jesus will bring him back?" Gloria's eyes flooded. She turned her face away, quickly, so Daniel wouldn't see the storm breaking inside her. Some answers are too heavy for a child, but a mother carries them anyway, because love always does. The plane lifted off at dawn, and the world below grew smaller. Gloria sat by the window, her body still recovering, her heart still shattered. She watched the Syrian sands blur into distance, dusty roads, scattered rooftops, places that once held her laughter. Her lips moved in a whisper only heaven could hear. "Goodbye, home of my beginning. Goodbye, love of my heart." She looked down. Daniel slept against her side, his tiny chest rising steadily. The baby rested on her lap, wrapped in white, soft breathing like a promise refusing to fail. And then Gloria's fingers found the pendant at her neck, engraved with the words Ethan once gave her like a vow. "Forever yours." She held it tightly, like if she loosened her grip, she might lose the last thread connecting her to him. Some promises don't end in life. They travel with you through grief, until heaven rewrites them. Back in Texas, the mission house stood like a familiar prayer. Humble walls, quiet porch, a home built on faith. Pastor David Johnson and Mama Grace waited outside, not speaking much. Because some moments don't need words, they need strength. When the black car pulled up, Pastor David ran toward his daughter. And Gloria, who had been holding herself together like glass, finally shattered in her father's arms. Her sobs came fast and uncontrollable. Years of strength collapsed into one moment of being held. Her mother, Mrs. Grace, reached into the car and took the newborn gently, hands trembling. She stared down at the baby's face and inhaled sharply. "She looks just like him," she whispered, voice breaking. And the mission house filled with weeping. Not the weeping of hopelessness, but the weeping of love stretched too thin. Because grief is not proof that faith failed. It is proof that love was real. 2 weeks later, under the open Texas sky, Lieutenant Ethan Matthews was laid to rest. The ceremony was exact, respectful, and solemn. Military honors given to a man who served with courage. The bugle played, soft and piercing, each note like a tear the air itself could not hold back. Gloria stood in black, motionless, not because she wasn't feeling anything, but because she was feeling too much. The soldiers folded the flag with precision, triangle by triangle, until it became a symbol small enough to fit into the arms of the woman who had lost her world. One soldier stepped forward and placed it into Gloria's hands. Gloria held it against her chest like it was Ethan's heartbeat returned to her, and tears fell silently down her cheeks. Daniel tugged at her dress, eyes innocent, voice quiet. "Mummy, is Papa sleeping?" Gloria knelt slowly, pulling him close. Her voice trembled, but she kept it tender. "Yes, my son, but in heaven, no one ever wakes up tired." Even sorrow can be sacred when it's wrapped in love. Time moved the way rivers do, not rushing, just continuing. A year passed at the mission house. Gloria helped her parents in small church programs. She smiled for people when she could. She held herself steady for her children. Daniel grew taller, his words clearer, his questions sharper. The baby, Elise, grew from fragile breaths into soft giggles that filled the house like sunlight. But grief never fully left. Every night when the house grew quiet and the world finally stopped asking her to be strong, Gloria sat by the window. She wore her pendant. She held it. She whispered Ethan's name into the darkness like a prayer. Sometimes Daniel would climb into her lap and rest his head against her. Mother and son staring at the same sky, the same stars that once shone over Syria. And Gloria would breathe in slow, breathe out slow, and remind herself that healing is not a switch. Healing is a dawn. Then one morning, the mail arrived, and with it a letter that carried both sorrow and mercy. Gloria sat at the kitchen table and opened the envelope slowly, as if she could feel the weight of the words before reading them. It was from Mr. and Mrs. Matthews, Ethan's parents, in Kelowna, British Columbia. The handwriting was elegant, the tone was warm, but every line felt like touching Ethan's memory with bare hands. She read, "Dear Gloria, we have never met in person, though your love for our son reached us even from across the ocean. Please come home to us. You and the children are all we have left of him." Gloria covered her mouth as tears rose again. She folded the letter carefully and pressed it to her chest, not because it fixed anything, but because it reminded her she was not alone. Her voice came out soft, uncertain, yet awake. Maybe this is where the next chapter begins. Winter had arrived in North America. The plane descended over endless white, mountains dusted with snow, frozen lakes gleaming like glass, a world so different from the desert that once held their love story. Gloria held Daniel's hand tightly as they stepped off the aircraft. The cold air bit her cheeks, sharp and startling. Daniel shivered and looked up at her. And Gloria, who had not felt new in so long, felt something unfamiliar, a beginning. At the arrival gate, Mr. and Mrs. Matthews waited with open arms. Mr. Matthews, tall and gray-haired, stepped forward and took her suitcase as if it was the easiest way to say, "I will carry what I can." Dr. Eleanor Matthews hugged Gloria gently, and tears glistened in her eyes. "You're home now, my daughter," Eleanor whispered. Gloria nodded faintly, overwhelmed, trembling, not because she was fully healed, but because for the first time she felt held by people who missed Ethan the way she did. And that kind of shared grief can become shared strength. That night, the guest room was warm, cream-colored walls, soft lamplight, quiet blankets folded neatly as if someone had prepared space for her pain. Gloria laid Daniel in bed and watched him sleep, his small face relaxed for the first time in days. Her baby girl also sleeping on her small bed, and with a voice barely louder than a whisper, she spoke her name like a blessing. Elise. Outside the window, snow fell silently, soft, steady, endless, like heaven sending a different kind of cleansing. Gloria stood near the glass and watched the world turn white. And there she stood, in the hush of a new land, Kelowna's winter wrapping the world in white, while her heart still carried the dust of Syria and the weight of goodbye. Gloria Matthews didn't arrive in Canada fully healed. She arrived still grieving, still remembering, still holding on. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, she found something that grief could not steal: rest. Not because the pain disappeared, but because faith whispered again, "You're not finished." The pendant at her neck still reads, "Forever yours." And though Ethan is gone, love hasn't ended. It has simply changed shape and become a promise she must now carry forward for Daniel, for Elise, and for the destiny still ahead. Because sometimes the end of a chapter is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of the next miracle. So if episode 6 moved you, even just a little, please subscribe, like this video, and share this story with someone who needs strength and hope today. Episode 7, A New Beginning, is coming.